An old canine, once a hero, now discarded like yesterday's trash. No badge, no handler, just frostbitten paws and empty eyes staring through a glass window. A 5-star restaurant, warm meals inside. And outside, nothing but snow, hunger, and silence. No one stopped. No one cared. Until he did. A young police officer, battle-hardened by duty but quietly broken inside, looked into the eyes of a dog everyone else ignored. What happened next will leave you speechless. Because this isn't just about a stray dog finding a meal, it's about a forgotten hero helping solve a crime no one could crack, just to thank the man who gave him a second chance. Before we start, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. And if you believe every animal deserves dignity, not abandonment, hit that subscribe button. Because what you're about to hear will stay with you forever. The town of Silverbrook, tucked beneath the snowy shoulders of northern Colorado, lay buried under its 5th consecutive day of snow. It was the kind of winter that silenced everything: roads, rivers, and hearts. By 9 p.m., the streets had emptied, and the only signs of life came from the orange glows behind cabin windows and the occasional whir of snowplows crawling through the ice-covered roads. On the corner of Main and Halter, where a line of closed shops sat like frozen ghosts, one place remained defiantly lit: Lakeside Grill. A warm, cedar-paneled restaurant, well known among the locals for its elk burgers and firewood pizza, and among out-of-towners for its candlelit ambiance. Tonight, the soft jazz playing inside mixed with the sound of laughter and the rhythmic clink of glasses. Through its large bay windows, one could see servers dancing between tables, families leaning into comfort food, and wine being poured into long-stemmed glasses. Outside, on the icy sidewalk, stood a forgotten Shadow. Shadow, a German shepherd, older than most would guess, hunched near the window. His coat was once a vibrant mix of tan and black, now faded to an uneven dullness marked by splotches of dirt, ash, and snow. His ears, one slightly torn, stood only half alert, weighed down by fatigue and cold. His body was thin, almost skeletal under the thick fur. The tremble in his legs wasn't from fear, but from exhaustion. He stood in place, unmoving, except for the shallow rise and fall of his breath. Shadow's brown eyes, sunken but sharp, watched through the glass. His gaze wasn't fixed on the people, nor the warmth, but the food. Steam rolled off a plate of roasted duck. A child licked honey butter from her fingers. A basket of garlic bread was passed down a table. The smells wafting out through the cracks in the doorway teased memories he could no longer place. Then he raised a paw, stiff and cracked at the edges, and tapped the window. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was light, softer than knuckles, more tentative than begging. A rhythm of habit, as if some part of him still remembered how to signal for help, how to ask permission. No one looked. One man glanced up briefly, frowning. A waiter brushed past the window, oblivious. A couple shifted in their seats to get a better angle for a photo of their dessert. Shadow lowered his paw, but didn't move. He stared on, quietly enduring the cold that pressed against his sides like stone. Snow continued to fall, landing and melting on his ears, his snout, his spine. A few blocks down, walking with heavy steps, Officer Nathan Cole made his way along the frozen sidewalk. Nathan, 32, was tall, clean-cut, but rugged. His thick patrol coat clung to his frame, dark hair peeking beneath a department-issued wool cap. The sleeves of his uniform were dusted with dried road salt. He had just ended his 12-hour shift, one that began with a car accident and ended with a domestic dispute, both unresolved. His boots were soaked through, his fingers numb, even inside his gloves. Nathan was the kind of man who rarely showed what he felt, but not because he didn't feel. He had a deep steadiness about him, a presence that came from growing up too fast. His father, a respected sheriff, had been killed in the line of duty when Nathan was just 11. Since then, Nathan had learned that control, over breath, over tone, over emotion, was its own kind of survival. He didn't mind the snow. He preferred walking after his shift. It gave him distance from the noise, the paperwork, the hum of radios that never quite turned off. As he passed Lakeside Grill, Nathan was about to glance away like anyone else until he heard it. Tap, tap, tap. He stopped. The sound was so out of place, so gentle against the backdrop of wind and winter silence, that for a moment he thought he imagined it. Then he heard it again. He turned toward the restaurant window and squinted. At first, all he could see was the reflection of the street behind him. Then, the shape began to emerge, faintly, almost as if carved from the snow itself. 4 legs, drooping head, pointed ears, a tail still and low. A dog. Nathan blinked, momentarily frozen, not from cold, but from recognition. There was something about the posture, the expression, the patience of the creature on the other side of the glass that pulled at something old inside him. Tap! The dog raised its paw again, and that's when Nathan truly looked. His breath caught. The frost on the restaurant window had begun to melt from Shadow's shallow breath. He stood still, ears drooping from fatigue, nose barely brushing the glass, his paw halfway raised in mid-tap as if unsure whether another try would make a difference. Inside the warmth of Lakeside Grill, a waiter emerged from the swinging kitchen doors, his arms loaded with a heavy tray of half-eaten dishes cleared from a recently vacated table. He was a tall man, perhaps in his early 30s, wearing a neatly pressed white shirt beneath a black vest with the restaurant's logo stitched in gold. His name tag read Tyler, and his brow was perpetually furrowed, his features sharp and impatient. His narrow eyes flicked toward the window as he approached the back door that led to the dumpster out back. He paused mid-step. "Not you again," he muttered under his breath, clicking the latch open with his elbow. He pushed the door wide with a hip, letting in a brief gust of the warm air that mixed with the frigid night. The noise startled Shadow, who stepped back but held his ground. Tyler exited briskly, letting the door swing closed behind him. "Damn mutt," he said louder this time, now only a few feet from Shadow. He tilted the tray forward and with one swift motion, dumped its contents into the metal bin. The clatter of ceramic and leftover food echoed through the alley. Greasy napkins, bits of bread, bones scraped clean, and a near-whole baked potato rolled to the edge of the pile. Shadow flinched, not at the noise, but at the way Tyler's hand moved, swift and dismissive as if casting away something foul. Tyler turned, saw the dog still watching him, and took a step forward. "Scram!" he snapped, stomping toward him. He waved a dish rag in the air as though shooing off a raccoon. "Go on, get out of here." Shadow didn't snarl. He didn't growl or bark. He simply lowered his ears, tail tucked beneath his legs, and took 2 slow steps back. His body curved inward with instinctive submission, not fear, as if this kind of rejection was familiar, expected. Nathan, still standing on the corner half shielded by the falling snow, saw it all unfold. His breath caught in his throat. Something old and raw surged through his chest. Not rage, but recognition. He had seen that posture before, not from animals, from people, from himself. It was winter in Ohio 17 years ago. 11-year-old Nathan, standing on the porch in a threadbare jacket, suitcase in hand, while his uncle slammed the door shut behind him. "Go back to your dad," his uncle had shouted, not knowing Nathan's father would never come back. The snow fell that day too, and Duke, the only warm body beside him, had pressed against his side and refused to move. The memory passed like a knife under the skin. Tyler was already turning back toward the restaurant, muttering to himself, "Ugh, disgusting." But Shadow remained still in the snow, not quite gone, not quite staying. His gaze lingered on the heap of food just beyond the metal bin, not daring to approach again. Nathan stepped forward now, the crunch of his boots catching Tyler's attention. The waiter turned with a sigh and tried to smile. "Oh, officer, sorry, didn't see you there. Everything okay?" Nathan didn't answer right away. His eyes were still on Shadow. The dog's frame was even thinner than it had looked from a distance, ribs pressing against the matted fur, paws red from contact with salted concrete. Nathan finally spoke, his voice calm but low. "Was that necessary?" Tyler blinked. "Excuse me?" The yelling, the food toss, the rag. Nathan's tone didn't rise, but it thickened with quiet weight. "That dog isn't causing anyone harm." Tyler shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward the restaurant's security camera above the door. "It's not personal. I've seen him out here all week. My manager says if we let one in, we'll have 20 the next night." Nathan looked at him now, eyes steady, unblinking. "You ever ask where he came from?" "He's a stray. Probably followed the trash route." "No," Nathan said quietly, shaking his head. "That's not a stray. That's a working dog. Or was." He stepped forward and knelt slowly, ignoring the snow soaking through the knee of his uniform. He didn't call out. He just waited. Shadow looked at him, really looked, and blinked. For a moment, his tail twitched, not in wagging, but in silent processing, like an engine trying to remember how to turn over. Nathan didn't reach out, didn't make a sound. His eyes softened as if to say, "I'm not here to chase you off." The dog lowered his head slightly but didn't come closer. Tyler shifted again, now clearly uncomfortable. "Look, I don't mean to be rude, officer, but if customers see him, they might complain." Nathan raised a hand without looking at him. "You can go back inside." Sure." Tyler hesitated, then opened the door and slipped inside, letting the warmth swallow him whole. Snow continued to fall, clinging to the edges of Nathan's hat and settling into Shadow's fur. The dog gave a single, shallow exhale and then, ever so slightly, took one small step forward. Nathan felt the corner of his mouth lift, just barely. He didn't move. He didn't need to. The snow had begun to settle again, a soft curtain draping over the alley behind Lakeside Grill. It fell without sound, without pause, muffling the world into a slow, cold stillness. Shadow stood at the edge of the dumpster, eyes fixed on the pile of discarded food half submerged in frost. His breath steamed gently from his nostrils, each exhale a whisper of need. His stomach tightened beneath matted fur. The hunger clawed at him, ancient and relentless. He licked his lips. Then, cautiously, as though walking into a memory that might vanish if disturbed, he took a step toward the bin. The trash pile was barely a foot away now, soggy bread, scraps of beef, wilted greens, a crumpled napkin with traces of butter. Shadow inched forward again, his body lowered, tail tucked, ears flattened. Every part of his posture begged forgiveness for needing something so basic, for simply existing. Just as he extended his nose toward a discarded potato wedge, the door slammed open. A man burst out, heavy boots hitting the concrete with force. His name was Russ, the kitchen supervisor, mid-40s, stout and red-faced, with grease-stained sleeves and a permanent scowl etched between his brows. Years of working in a fast-paced, high-pressure kitchen had left him impatient, quick-tempered, and proud of his authority over anything behind the swinging kitchen doors. Russ spotted Shadow instantly. "Oh no!" he barked. "Not this again!" He grabbed a long wooden stirring spoon from a bin near the door, raised it above his head and thrust it downward, not to strike, but to intimidate, hitting the metal side of the dumpster with a loud clang. Shadow flinched hard. His legs buckled slightly as he recoiled, slipping on the icy concrete, landing awkwardly on his hip. He scrambled upright, heart racing, but didn't run. Instead, he stood still, frozen not by fear alone, but by resignation, the kind that settles into creatures who've been pushed away too many times. Russ advanced a step, voice sharper now. "Get out of here, you filthy stray! I swear if I see you digging again, I'll call animal control myself." Across the street, standing beneath the yellow glow of a flickering lamppost, Officer Nathan Cole watched everything. His breath misted in the cold as he stood still, jaw tightening, fists clenched inside his gloves. It wasn't just the scene before him, it was the echo it stirred inside his own memory. Winter, Ohio, a frozen creek. He was 10, walking along the edge of the water where the ice had begun to turn glassy. He stepped too far. The ice cracked with a sound like thunder. In seconds, he was underwater, limbs flailing, unable to scream. The world was blue and white, spinning. Then came Duke. The family's German shepherd had leapt into the water without hesitation, teeth grabbing Nathan's coat, dragging him to the edge with a strength born of desperation. Duke hadn't let go, not even when his legs gave out from the cold. Nathan had survived. Duke had died 2 days later from complications of hypothermia. That moment, the sound of Duke's final whine, the way the family buried him beneath the oak tree in their backyard, it had carved a space in Nathan's heart that never quite healed. And now, watching this old, broken dog cower before an angry man, something cracked again. He stepped into the alley. Russ, mid-shout, didn't notice until Nathan was just a few feet away. "Sir," Nathan called out, voice firm but even. Russ turned, spoon still in hand. "Officer, didn't see you there." Nathan didn't stop walking. He approached calmly, coat glinting with snow, badge clipped to his belt clearly visible. "You always use kitchenware as a threat?" Russ lowered the spoon but didn't look ashamed. "I wasn't going to hit him, just giving him a scare. It's the 3rd time this week he's been sniffing through our bins." "He's not hurting anyone," Nathan said, glancing at Shadow. The dog had backed further away now, but hadn't bolted. His eyes remained fixed on Nathan, quiet, unsure, and searching. Russ shrugged. "Customers don't want some mud out here while they're eating filet mignon. We're not running a rescue." Nathan pulled his badge slightly into view. "He's not just a mutt, he's canine. Or used to be." Russ blinked. "You serious?" Nathan didn't answer. He turned toward Shadow, then took a slow, deliberate step closer. "Hey," he said, soft as snow falling. Shadow didn't move, but his ears twitched. He was watching, processing. Nathan lowered himself into a crouch, boots creaking slightly beneath him. He didn't reach out. He didn't call again. He simply stayed there, still, grounded, offering space. Russ lingered for a moment, arms crossed, clearly uncomfortable with the silence. "I'll leave you to it," he muttered. "But don't let him hang around. We've got inspections coming." He turned and vanished into the kitchen, letting the door swing shut with a thud. Nathan remained in his crouch. He studied the old dog's face. Scars around the jawline, a healed nick in the left ear, fur matted at the shoulders. But behind it all, those eyes. They weren't wild. They weren't broken. They were waiting. The officer exhaled slowly. "You've seen some things, haven't you, old boy?" Shadow didn't come closer, but he didn't back away either. Between them was a thread. Thin, fragile, but unmistakable. The kind of connection that didn't need words, just recognition. The snow swirled around them, white and quiet. For a long moment, man and dog stood in the same breath. The wind had quieted, the snow now drifting in lazy flakes that melted against the warm glow of Lakeside Grill's entrance. Nathan stood outside the door for a beat, Shadow sitting by his side. The dog's breathing had slowed, but his legs still trembled beneath him. The warmth from inside reached them in faint pulses every time the door opened, carrying with it the scent of baked bread, roasted meat, and cinnamon. Nathan looked down at the German shepherd, ragged, scarred, but still holding his head with a quiet dignity. "Come on," he murmured. "Let's give them something to stare at." He opened the heavy wooden door and stepped inside, snow dusting off his coat and pooling at his boots. The restaurant was full, families chatting over empty plates, couples leaning in close over wine glasses, and the quiet clatter of dishes echoing beneath low jazz. As Nathan entered, heads turned. Not because he was a police officer, but because of what followed him. Shadow limped into the room, paws clicking softly against the polished hardwood. Silence rippled through the restaurant like a sudden draft. A fork clinked against a plate and stayed there. A hostess, no older than 20, stood behind the front stand. Her name tag read Claire. She was petite, with curly auburn hair pulled into a messy bun, her cheeks flushed from the kitchen heat. Her eyes widened when she saw the dog. "Sir?" she began, voice tentative. We can't have animals inside unless they're—" "He's with me," Nathan said calmly, showing his badge with one hand while resting the other gently on Shadow's back. "And he's not just any dog." Claire faltered, unsure, but something in Nathan's tone, soft but resolute, made her nod and gesture toward an empty table near the fireplace. "Of course. Right this way." Nathan led Shadow slowly to the corner table. It was tucked beneath a painting of the nearby Silverbrook trailhead, the fireplace casting dancing light across the walls. He pulled out the chair opposite his own and patted the space beside it. "Sit, partner." Shadow hesitated, then lowered himself to the floor with a slow exhale, tail wrapping around his hind legs. His eyes scanned the room cautiously, but he didn't move to leave. Across the restaurant, a waitress in her 30s watched the scene unfold. Her name was Maya, tall and willowy, with the long brown hair braided over one shoulder and a tired grace to her movements. Years working double shifts and raising 2 kids on her own had made her quietly efficient and deeply empathetic. She approached with her notepad but didn't speak right away. Her eyes landed on Shadow. "Do you want a bowl of water for him?" she asked. Nathan looked up, surprised by the offer, and nodded. "And if the kitchen has any plain cooked meat, no seasoning, he hasn't eaten in days." Maya gave a half smile. "I'll see what we can do." She returned moments later with a stainless steel bowl of water and a small plate of steamed chicken breast. She set it down gently in front of Shadow, who sniffed it but didn't lunge. Instead, he looked to Nathan, who gave a subtle nod. Then, slowly, Shadow began to eat. The murmur of the restaurant resumed, though conversations were quieter now. People tried not to stare,